Alrighty, everyone, welcome to Community Chat. My name is Anthony Saracusa, the Director of Community Engagement here at the University of Mississippi, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Ms. Erin Peiser-Oath, our Assistant Director for Community Partnerships in the Office of Community Engagement, and Dr. Jody Holland, a professor here on campus in Public Policy and Leadership. We've been doing community chats for many months now, so we have a relatively large archive. We want to encourage you to go scope those out. I think we have over 50 interviews now, so you can look at our YouTube page. On Spotify, we've got a podcast. You can check all of these out on Facebook where you can see the video streams. So please go and hear from these community leaders because that's the point of community chats, is to raise up the voices of folks in the Lafayette Oxford University community, and in some cases across the state, who are working hard to make a positive impact in our region. This has been a partnership with LOFT, Lafayette Oxford Foundation for Tomorrow, from the beginning. So please go and check out LOFT's work, where you can read about many of our outstanding nonprofits in the LOU region. And if you'd like to be interviewed on Community Chats or know somebody who should be, reach out to us, engaged@olemiss.edu, or send us a note on Facebook. So today we are extremely lucky to have Ms. April Grayson from the William Winter Institute here to talk with us. And April, welcome to Community Chats.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we want this time to be your time. So we're going to get right into it with our first question, which is, tell us a little bit about how you ended up here in the Lafayette Oxford University region.
Oh, wow. Well, I'll try to be succinct. I grew up in Mississippi in the Mississippi Delta, and I moved away for many years in the Pacific Northwest, but Mississippi kept calling me home, and I was doing documentary work. And so I decided to return home to do documentary work. And at the time, I was very apprehensive about returning, but what is now known as the William Winter Institute for Racial Reconciliation was in its infancy. And I met its founding director, Susan Glisson, at the time, and felt like, oh, I have some alliances with folks that I can build and do this work. And so I came back and immediately sort of started volunteering for what's now the Winter Institute. I went away. I worked for the Winter Institute for a few years. I went away for 5 years, and then I came back because of an opportunity to work at the Winter Institute again. So it's really this work and Mississippi and its people that they're the reason that I'm here.
Thank you.
That's great. Now I'm really curious. So you go from a volunteer with the Institute now to the position you're in now. Tell us a story of that journey.
It's kind of a long one. Well, I came back and like I said, doing documentary film and video work. And at the time, there was really just one staff person and a few volunteers, and there was an opportunity to participate in some oral history work. And so I just started volunteering and tagging along with Susan at the time and filming whatever needed to happen. And then eventually she was able to get some funding to, hire me part-time. And then I eventually moved into full-time. And I left as documentary educator at the Institute, but I returned as part of the community building team. And now I am the director of what is known as the community and capacity building team. So we've evolved over the years, thanks to, that early work with communities throughout Mississippi.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, April, for those in our audience that maybe are not familiar with the William Winter Institute, will you just zoom out a little bit and tell us a little bit about the Institute and the work and the mission, what y'all do?
Yes, absolutely. So we were founded at the University of Mississippi in this community, and we're here, for many years. And about almost 3 years ago, we transitioned off the campus into a separate 501c3 and moved our headquarters to Jackson. So I'm actually the only staff person still based in Oxford. And we work all over the state. We work within this community as well, and we work in other states across the U.S. as well. And now in the virtual world, we've even been able to do more in international engagement as well. And we have three branches. My team is the community and capacity building team. We focus on a process called the welcome table, which is a model that is built on community building, relationship and trust building, and models of dialogue, so that we can build a foundation that is strong and tackle equity issues within our own spheres of influence together, collaboratively, while learning from each other and really committing ourselves to the work. We have two other branches, the Youth Engagement branch, which is primarily focused around our Summer Youth Institute, and then also a Policy and Civic Engagement branch, which is really focused on policy and topics that that team focuses on to assist legislators, journalists, others who are thinking about shorter or longer term policy issues.
Wow, what a cool mission and so many components to it. I imagine that it takes a team to carry that out, particularly, thinking not just about Mississippi or even the nation, but now some of the international work that you're doing. So would you share a little bit about some of the folks who are on the team at the Institute?
Yes. So we're a small but mighty team, we like to say. Our youth engagement group is at this time led by Vaughn Gordon, who was a student at the university and was on our founding board. And so his history with the Winter Institute is very long as well. And so he is in charge of our youth engagement. And then we have two folks, Jake McGraw and Duran, who are our policy and civic engagement people. And then we have Jackie Martin, who's based in Macomb, Mississippi. She's a civil rights veteran and was one of our early community members, who now works for us on my team. I've been working with her in partnership for many years. Deeply admire her and all of her work. And Jennifer Heath is our newest member of our team. And then our executive director is Portia Ballard Espy. And we have an administrative person named Quitish Brown. So we're small and all over the place, but we get a lot done, we think.
That's great. Thanks.
Well, and that's what I want to kind of understand. You have a team across the state, and you talked about the three divisions under the Institute, and you also talked about the Welcome Table initiative. Can you tell us a little bit more about some specific initiatives or what some things on the horizon that are emerging with your efforts?
Yes, absolutely. So we, our main goal is to be responsive to communities, organizations, any kind of group that calls upon us. So we never go in and sort of say, hey, this is what we do. We're going to work on this project here. Come join us. We respond when people approach us and say, my community wants to wrestle with some of its history and help make a more equitable space for all of our community members. And so we work with a group to craft, what are their goals and what is the situation in their particular area. But we use basically a curriculum called the Welcome Table that ideally leads them through a series of sessions over months or historically even years that is again founded on that community building and relationship building, trust building aspect. But then we scaffold our approach so that we then move to more learning opportunities, such as even things like, what are these vocabulary terms around equity issues that I've heard but I don't really understand? Getting into deeper investigations of histories, both national, state, local histories, and how they've impacted, legacies within communities. And then the final, or not the final goal, because we don't ever sort of say you're done, goodbye. We engage as groups want to, but the goal basically is to, whether it's a ad hoc community group or an organization, a boards of director, a school, whatever the organization we're working with, is to look at your own, world, your own sphere of influence, and with an eye towards investigating, are there areas that we need to improve? Are there policies, procedures that we need to change to be more equitable? And how might we go about that and collaborate on that? So the different projects or the different outcomes look different from community or group to group, but they range from things like a state agency coming up with a list of equity recommendations and presenting it to leadership and beginning to implement those within their own agency, to a community that communities have started community gardens or tutoring programs and within schools. One of the things that we're supporting in Lafayette County is what we have been calling the Lynching Memorialization Project, and we've recently sort of shifted what we call ourselves to the Lafayette Community Remembrance Project, and that has been ongoing for a few years and grew out of a welcome table group in Oxford, but then has expanded quite a bit over the last 2 or 3 years as more and more people found out about it. And it's a deeper investigation into the history of lynching in this community, engaging with family members of victims and descendants, and doing public memorializations and markers, working with high school students on essay contests, all these kind of things. That is one of my heart projects here within this community. And I've just been so moved by the wonderful, wonderful people on the steering committee and subcommittees as well that have supported that work. And it just really gives me such admiration for this community in that way.
Great, thank you.
This is such important work, and yet just hearing you talk, we know it's also challenging work. So what are some of those greatest challenges that you've experienced?
Well, I think that it's really around people's comfort in engaging in these issues in the first place, and an assumption that if we talk about race or other forms of difference, that we're being impolite or we're stirring up trouble or we're not moving on. And so through our work, we really try to interrupt those assumptions about how we can engage very effectively and very collaboratively around really hard topics. So a big part of my work, as I see it, is bringing people to the table with an open heart, and then helping them collaboratively gain comfort in talking about these things. Because I've seen it time and time again, it can be done effectively, and people feel really good after doing it, rather than feeling like it was, an experience fraught with conflict or things like that. And so our work is very much around having hard conversations, looking very deeply at realities, truth telling, but we believe very much in creating a foundational approach where it's not an us versus them, it's not a shame and blame, that it's here's what we've inherited, let's look at the facts and the truth, but we're going to extend grace to each other, we're going to learn together, and we're going to really, work through this history and the current situation in productive ways.
What a powerful mission, particularly in this moment in our country. And, being someone who has spent a lot of time in this field and thinking about the exact things you're talking about, April, a lot comes to mind, but we don't have time for that. We'll have a follow-up. So our next question really is about the rewards that you feel from this work. Obviously, it's challenging, as you noted, but what's the sort of personal and professional payoff for this for you?
Oh, wow. This really is my heart's work. It speaks to me so deeply, and I could spend a long time talking about this, but mostly it is the relationships with people, the absolutely wonderful people that I get to meet along the way and walk alongside. It is just those things like I was describing earlier, the recognition that people have the shifts when people realize, hey, we can do this. This is not so bad. I've been taught that this is hard, this is off limits, or this is just going to blow up in my face. And when people realize that actually, no, we can do this, and we can do it in ways that are really, really actually rewarding, that just feeds my soul. And, and then seeing real shifts in equity outcomes for, communities, and helping people recognize that it is slow work, and it is, deep and multi-layered. So we're not going to necessarily transform an entire community in a year, for example, but we can certainly make some real impacts and inroads, and and really nurture collaborative work together.
Great, thanks.
April, I'm wondering, if a community stakeholder sees this and, learns more about your mission, and they say, hey, look, we'd like to have that here, or volunteer in the community and say, hey, I want to be a part of this initiative and this work you're doing. How would you tell them to come alongside you guys?
Well, they should reach out to me or one of my colleagues. We have the winterinstitute.org, or winterinstitute.org is our website. And so we're always first names at winterinstitute.org. So I'm April at. Reach out to me, or one of my teammates. We talk through the process and what their goals and what the situation is. And then as schedules allow, we try to set up, a series of sessions with them. And for some, particularly ad hoc community groups that don't have a source of funding, we do have some limited grant funding that actually covers that work, whereas others that have budgets, organizations, things like that, we have developed a fee-for-service program to help sustain our work as an organization. And so then we go through this process, and a convener, a community stakeholder, would really think about who are the people to bring to the table. How do we either invite them, or bring them along, or open it up to participation. We work in small groups, generally like 15 to 25, because the community building and relationship building aspect of the work is so important, and the intimacy of the work is important. So, larger groups, it can be challenging, though we do sometimes work with organizations who have 150 employees, for example, and we just, they're in smaller cohorts, or circles as we call them, together. So they're all experiencing the same work, but in smaller, more intimate groups. So it's really starts with a conversation about where you're at, and what the readiness is, and we just go from there in terms of how it might look, and what the schedule and timeline might be, and all those factors.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
So April, we call this our 1 minute moment. So 1 minute to share anything that you would like with members of the community, the people who are listening today. What do you most want to share?
Wow. Echoing some of the things I've said before about this work not needing to be scary, and that I have just seen the richest relationships grow across, huge points of what people thought were different through this kind of work, and also that the real power of healing for some people in memorialization work. There is sometimes a sense that, like I said before, why are we keeping this inflamed? Why do we continue to talk about this? And I would just say it's actually remarkably healing for people when we get to talk about this. And instead of causing problems, it actually helps us see some solutions to problems, and can be personally and collectively much more of a healing process.
Wow, what a powerful line of work you're engaged in with the William Winter Institute. And I think there's a lot of reticence to enter into things that are difficult for everybody around a lot of things, and that fear can sometimes preclude us from stepping into that space. But once we're there, right, we can develop some of the skills and the sensibilities, and most importantly, perhaps the relationships that we need to advance and to really start to acknowledge some of the more difficult elements of our past, particularly in this place as it relates to race. So April, thank you for doing that work, for being a part of such a dynamic team here in Mississippi at the William Winter Institute, and for joining us on Community Chats today. We're so glad we could share your work out with our viewers.
Thank you so much. My pleasure, and I really appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. And to everybody who tuned in today, please go ahead and follow the William Winter Institute. You'll want to make sure you keep up with their work. This is critical, particularly in this moment and in the years to come. You will want to follow what they are doing. So we will post a link to their website and let you know how you can get in touch with them. So please follow the William Winter Institute. Please also share this video with your friends. Share the podcast with folks who need to know about this work. Like it, tag people in the comments, and let's make sure that the word gets out about the Winter Institute. Thanks to everybody for tuning in today to Community Chats. We hope folks are staying safe, but also that you're staying engaged, and we'll see you next time.